still not tired of that theme music. It pumps me up, Robert, man. It pumps me up. Man, Coffee and Grit. We are excited. I've got a really awesome guest today. We're just talking. It's going to be a fun one. This guy is awesome. I had a chance to meet him a few weeks ago at an event, and he is raising the awareness of consciousness on the planet. And that's through writing, through leadership, through entrepreneurship, through performance, and through shifting energy, right?
Wow, you're good.
Boom, I nailed it.
Wow.
He's the founder of the Raven Institute after a lifetime in the education field, making a lot of difference in the world. And I'm super, super excited. I had a chance, like I said, to meet him, and we had an awesome conversation. And then afterwards, we did Zoom. You know, we don't do things in person these days. We do Zoom. So
I know. What am I doing here? Where am I?
We were just jamming. Everybody that listens to me knows I talk about doing sales from an authentic, from a vulnerable place, from being you. And Robert believes the same thing. So we're gonna have a killer conversation around this today. Without further ado, Robert Joseph Palmer, welcome to Coffee and Grit.
Thank you so much. And when you said coffee and grit, I'm like, where's my coffee?
I know.
I need a coffee in the middle of the afternoon. It's wake me up here. But
so when I started, it was at 8, at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'd have my coffee. Now, 2 o'clock, I'm a little coffeeed out. By that time, if I'm drinking coffee, I'm like all cracked out, so.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself. But my downtime is like that 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That's when I hit a wall because I'm up at 5.
Yes. Yeah.
So by 1, you're talking, that's 8 hours into it. And it's kind of like whammo. So, yeah. And I'm also one of those people that's a night person and a morning person. So you have to master the art of the power nap, the quick nap, or you're in big trouble if you have that lifestyle. And that's me.
I love the power nap, like that 15 to 30 minute
under
nap.
20 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, the armed forces says it has to be 19 minutes or less.
19 minutes or less.
19, now you're over 19. It's a mess. Like you're trying to wake up from a night's sleep.
Yeah.
That's how you feel.
So what do you do? And this is not where our conversation's going at all.
So we're here,
but I think the power nap is so important.
Sleep therapist, expert.
I hit that like 2 or 3 o'clock wall too. That's where like my natural energy fades, and so that 15 like a minute nap is huge.
Huge. That's when it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can fall asleep in minutes. Less than a minute. I'm out. I'm gone. And then I set an alarm that I have to get up and walk over to.
Yeah.
To turn it off. So. Yeah,
I'll drink coffee about 30 minutes beforehand because I read that it takes 30 minutes for caffeine to hit you. So there's two things with drinking, two strategies to that. So one, I feel like the caffeine is going to hit me within that time frame. And the second thing is I'm going to have to go to the bathroom inadvertently, at some point. So one of those two things is going to wake me up.
Let's hope it stays that way, especially with the bathroom.
It works.
The bathroom thing. Wow, I'm a lightweight then because I'm taking the first sip of coffee and I'm feeling it before it hits my stomach. So,
are you? Okay.
Yeah, it's immediate. Wow.
You got the immediate caffeine transfer. So
I just huge lightweight on that. So on everything.
So Robert, how did you come to found Raven Institute? Tell me a little bit about your background and what has you here today.
Well, I had to do something. I wasn't in the classroom. What do I do with all this expertise? So, as a longtime classroom teacher, school leader, as you know, but the common thing that happened all throughout my career was everyone telling me, "What are you doing here?" And not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because what we were doing was so innovative and revolutionary and so effective. And so colleagues, parents, administrators, when I wasn't the administrator, were just like, what are you doing here, man? You need to show this to the world. This is unbelievable. And I was always, I just did not have that scope. And I thought, I was a very humble person and just thought, I'll do this one classroom at a time and this will change the world. That's fine. That's my contribution. That's enough. And it's more than enough. And I don't want to work for a living. So, and I never did. So, but then I went away I thought I'd go to grad school, and someone said, hey, why don't you manage this fine men's clothing store? And so I did that for a few years, and it was an old tired business in northern Michigan. It was kind of a joke in town, and I rebranded it. I mean, I didn't know any of these terms. When I look back, that's what I did. And I just redesigned this whole business plan and made one. And the place was the talk of the town. They were doing the best sales they did in 40 plus years. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pretty good at this. And I was really enjoying it. And I realized, wow, teachers are pretty amazing entrepreneurs if they're effective. Not many of us.
Not many of us.
I'm not going to play around. I'm going to be real. But I was, and you realize, man, you're selling something to someone who doesn't even want it because they were told they didn't want it, and they bought into that. And then they come back for more even. So I'm thinking, wow. So I thought, geez, okay, well, that makes sense. Why don't I start this? And I thought I had this writing program that I designed in college with a Mercy nun at Mercy College of Detroit, Sister Christian. You can't write this. I mean, this is, and, created this thing that was just magic. It was magic. Every time, we had kids write, everyone wrote. In fact, that was my byline when I started the Raven Institute when we were just the School of Writing. Everyone can write, because over 20 years in the classroom, I just couldn't find somebody who couldn't write. Everybody could. Everyone got excited about it. But more importantly, the writing experience was a vehicle for them to unlock their intrinsic purpose in their life, in their passion they had in life, and, in any project they were working on. And so now they were intrinsically driven by this purpose that revealed itself through the art of writing, through this program. And it was more emotional and spiritual than academic, or I should say just as much, because really a lot of the academic concerns fell away. But that was how it started, was, okay, let me do this. And then the way I managed my classrooms and campuses became the School of Leadership Development. I just adapted that to team building and teaching leaders how to get the heck out of the way and allow and build community. We called it building community in the classroom and on campus. And it was really about empowering the students to do everything. Because, when I was in college, I said, well, I realized one day, what's the strongest force in the universe? Well, it's the teenagers need to be independent, to be in charge. Mm-hmm. And I thought if we could channel that force into a positive direction, instead of the negative direction I channeled it to for a long time when I was a teenager and became a suicidal teen living on the streets in Detroit, man, what if we could channel it to a positive place? And so I designed a system to do that and put them in charge of everything. And so that was why everyone said it was so revolutionary. They took the ceiling off the school. Like, they would have been there on Sundays if we told them. They didn't want to go away for breaks. They were just so much ownership. And that's so powerful. So that became our School of Leadership Development. So I teach mostly leaders how to do that, because the people in the group, the community, whether it's a family, a workspace, or a corporate entity, they all want to be in charge. They're sick and tired of the dumbest person in the room telling them what to do. And that's what it is. Yeah, trust me. Yeah. And I sat in school faculty meetings where it's like, wow, the least bright person in the room is in charge. This boat's going down. So it's like, I better get off of this thing. So, and everybody feels that way. We would do writing workshops, breakout sessions with large organizations for our writing program. And it all came out, and they're writing like Niagara Falls. Everyone's crying, which normally happens at our standalone writing events. Anyway, but everything they were writing about was how miserable they were working for the people they were working for. Wow. Yeah. In the workspace, and how it demoralized them and dehumanized them, and they had no purpose. So that's what the writing does. For a 15-year-old, it empowers him. For the 35, 55-year-old, it's like, what am I doing? What have I been doing for decades? And that could be kind of a slap in the face. So back to your question, but that's how it happened. And, in School of Entrepreneurship is us leveraging $1 billion wellness business and teaching people how to use the network marketing business model to have a home-based business, whether it's on the side, and start, again, living a more purposeful life. And we find that network marketing is the new consciousness in business. So it fits in with, the Raven Institute is 5 schools of mastery in a new consciousness. So we're doing this work with Jeunesse Global. I'm an affiliate. I'm a distributor. And I thought, my God, why don't I just teach this? Just kind of throw it under the umbrella of Raven. So it's not something I'm doing at the end of the day at 7 o'clock, but it's just what I do as part of my day. And then I try to teach people creatively to do the same thing with their own network marketing. And then also apply network marketing principles to their traditional business, which, by the way, over 80% of Fortune 500 companies now do. So because, again, Robert Kiyosaki says it is the business model of the 21st century. And for instance, one aspect of it is performance pay, which, a company doing performance pay competing with a company down the street that's not, man, the company that's not doing performance pay is going to just be extinct really fast.
I was just talking to someone recently that's having problems in their sales organization, and their salespeople do not make commission. And it's like, how do you incentivize them? I know for me, being a career salesperson, that if you take away my commission, it's like neutering a breeder dog. You have somebody that's just, there's no point to make that call. There's no point to get more sales. How do you motivate and drive them if you're not on a performance pay system?
Yeah, and it's a shame, but the way we look at it and the way it's described to me by some of my mentors right now that told me about this is, instead of companies, someone coming out of college and being paid $60,000 or $65,000 out of college for whatever profession, they're working for a Fortune 500 company. They say, no, now you're making 35 to start, but here's your incentive package to get to that 65. But the good news is there's no ceiling on the 65. You can keep going.
Yeah.
So now you've taken and it rings true for me as a classroom teacher and school leader who ran our schools like that. Let's take the ceiling off. Let's put people in the driver's seat, and that goes a lot farther than just telling people what to do. And Jordan Peterson, they do clinical psychology studies of companies who do performance pay or have a more empowered workforce. They typically, just on average, their productivity is 35% higher than people who are being incentivized by exterior forces, threats. Almost like you said, actually, I'm kind of contradicting you. Like, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
But, that's only going to go so far. But when you sit down and start deciding how are we going to, I would walk into that room and say, how are we going to pay you? I want to know what you think. How is my company going to pay you? I'm not going to tell you. You tell me.
Yeah.
And now they own it.
Yep.
Now it's like, whoa, now they can't wait to be there because they designed it. And then they can revisit it too. Hey, what we come up with this week is not, we're going to revisit this. We can tweak it. And we might find out.
I literally had this happen to me, and it was a game changer. And literally I took a scary situation because I had an owner of a company that wanted to hire me, but she said, I have no idea how we're going to afford to pay you. We're going through this bankruptcy. We have all these things going on. I don't know what we're going to do. And so I looked at their numbers and said, all right, let's put a bonus structure together. If I can, whatever sales I get out of here that you're not selling any of, if I can get 50% of that, if I can get 30% of this and I put together a compensation structure and then went and helped the company sell those things in order to make money. So they were making more money than they were making. I was able to get my cut of that. And then those numbers
created a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you paid yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Again, you're in charge. And that's the important, is total self-responsibility, total ownership is really powerful. And Dr. Kimball, who trained us as master teachers, I say he trained us as master teachers at U of D Mercy now, at Mercy College then. But Dr. Kimball, I've shared this principle with you. It's the stop yourself principle. That's what we call it at Raven. And every time you're about to do something for a student or your classroom as a whole, stop yourself. Teach them how to do it without you having to tell them how or tell them to do it or have to even be there. And so that changed my life forever. I thought, I'll never work a day in my life if I do that. And so I never wrote a test my entire teaching career. I never created a worksheet. I taught them how to do it. I stopped myself and said, well, let's teach them how to do it. So total ownership. And guess what happened? Let's talk about results and productivity. I used to have to start exam weeks at least a week earlier than the rest of the school, because my students created an exam that took them 6 or 7 hours to complete. So they couldn't do it in one class period. So I had to start a week early because they needed 6 or 7 extra days to get it done. But see, they created that.
Yeah.
So that was the secret sauce. That's when people were, why did you start the Raven Institute? because everyone always told me to. Because everyone was always like, "What are you doing here? This isn't happening anywhere else." And I was like, "Well, this is the secret. Why aren't we doing this everywhere? You know, everywhere, every workspace, every family. Quit telling each other what to do and ask each other. And what you say, listen.
Yes.
Sit down and listen to each other, and you're going to come up with some amazing, positive strategies for change. We always called it."
I think I brought this up to you in our last conversation. There's a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and he talks about this very way of educating kids, and that they have everything they need. We bog them down with rules, and because I said so's, and if you do this, then you're going to be damned to hell, or whatever the punishment is, whatever you're going to get detention.
Punitive only results in so much productivity.
So what does that look like in a class when everybody's taking their own responsibility?
Oh, it looks awesome. It's so fun. Like I was talking to Trevor in the lobby because I just started talking about this stuff. Because he's like, what did you do? And I tell you, so I was like, what? How did that work? And so he's like, and you could just see him like this smirk, like, man, I would have loved your class. I would have loved being in your school. And to hear somebody say that means they probably, the transitive is probably true. Man, I didn't love school.
Yeah,
I didn't enjoy that at all. But you're so right. Yeah, for me, and I told him, I said, I never worked a day in my life. I just walked in and said, what are we doing today? And I listened. And that's very powerful. That's like, it was amazing. And here was my thing. I'm tapping into that teenage, I want to be in charge, man. And don't tell me what to do. So I would tell him on day one, Mommy doesn't live here anymore. No one's going to ever tell you what to do in here, ever. And just leave that at the door, because we're not going to have this relationship of, parent, child, student, teacher, boss, employee. Just leave it at the door, because you're going to be treated like an adult in here. We're all just going to work collaboratively together and be a team. And they're like, whoa. So teenagers jump on that bus really fast. And I would always tell them, children do what they're told, but adults tell you what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And then they do what they say. And they loved that. But they'd have their moments, and even I would hiccup a couple of times. I'd have to apologize the next day. They'd all laugh at me. But, we fall back into the common consciousness. And but they would hiccup, and I'd be like, really? You're trying to drag me? And everybody falls in that freedom spectrum in a different place, because they want to drag you into the old story that they're familiar with, even though it doesn't serve them anymore. It's like, why are you busting up the way I look at the universe? I mean, this confrontation works for me. I got somebody to blame for what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the important thing, is teaching leaders or people in management that you don't have to carry the burden of knowing everything, of doing everything, of overseeing everything, making sure it gets done. No, stop carrying that burden that you have to be the it. Number one, you're going to have 10 times more energy.
Yeah.
And then quit carrying the burden of being the bad guy or bad girl when things go wrong or when a challenge shows up. Like, Urgh. And then you got to tell everybody what to do. And now guess what? They get to blame you for how they feel. Man, that, let that go. And, I was talking to a parent this week. Am I spinning out here?
No, you're good. Yeah.
Because we were going to partner with school districts. We had like 4 of them lined up, like, because they don't have anybody, right? They're underserving the regular kid, but the kids with special needs, they don't have anybody. So they're not even compliant legally, any of them. And this was popping up for us last year before the first of the year. We're like, oh my God. And I'm like, wow, we're going to make a ton of money. We're going to what? And so over Christmas break, we're sitting around, I'm thinking about it, we're talking, and I'm like, we don't want to do this. No, we don't. And the point of that is we decided to only work with families that have taken the responsibility and the ownership of educating their families back instead of deferring it to a third party. Mm. So we're only working with those. So I was speaking with a homeschool, mom who was like, pulling them out, and they're pulling them out by the tens of thousands, by the way. I don't know where they're going to get their funding. Well, they're still getting their funding. That's the problem, right? Mm-hmm. We're not serving anybody. We're still getting our funding. So that doesn't work. So, we talked about that. You can't keep paying people for doing nothing. You can't compete. And just so talking to that homeschool mom, the point of this was, getting out of telling her kids what to do. I could already hear it in the conversation. I said, what if we could create a situation where you never have to say what you just said, And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. It's like, yeah. And it's very simple to shift because kids will just go where you take them. You don't even have to explain to them where you're going or why. Just go. And they're going to be like, wow, this is really cool. This is great. And so they want to travel abroad and have their kids' education built around where they live a month at a time in different countries and all that stuff. And I'm just like, wow, this is going to be so fun. And so we'll teach the kids how to design their own curriculum because that's where, we say in our Beyond Tutoring program, we create master teachers instead of babysitting students.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like I did in all my classrooms, I taught them all to be master teachers because you and I talked about this. This is how the brain works. Dr. Kimball, again, from Mercy College, he taught me one day, I think it was the first day of education classes, he said the brain only retains 10% of what's lectured to it. And it remembers 90% of what it teaches someone else. So I looked at the guy next to me. I said, I'm just going to create a classroom full of teachers. And my next sentence was, I'll never work a day in my life.
And that was in
this
college?
Was all about that. Yeah. So everything I do is all based on those three principles. Stop yourself. I call it the 10-90 rule for your brain. And just empowering people to own everything. Take total responsibility. And just take that off yourself. Woo. So I could come home from teaching a full school day and go on a 40-mile training ride.
Yeah.
Have a girlfriend and go out all night and sleep a few hours, because I was just full of energy because the day energized me. And I'm actually writing a series of articles right now, leadership in the new energy, leading with ease in the new energy. And showing, one of the barometers is, hey, whatever you're engaged in or about to be engaged in or just finished with, did it energize you? That's the barometer. Is it exciting you? Is it filling you? Or are you going, or is it draining you? And so that's how you know if you're in the frequency of the new energy or if you're in the old consciousness trying to force something instead of going with the flow.
The word that just keeps popping up all while you're talking is empowerment. Empowerment. You're empowering people, whether they're the kids that you're teaching or leaders, entrepreneurs. You're empowering them to continue empowering people, which changes the world. It goes back to that beginning introduction where you're teaching the world how to have a new level of consciousness.
Yeah, it's everything. That's our mission, is to raise the consciousness on the planet. And I guess I did it, one classroom at a time for decades. But I think we know that the planet has shifted to a new energy, to a new consciousness. Enough people choose it either consciously or unconsciously, and it just happens. Mm-hmm. And we see the Christ consciousness that's what happened 2,000 years ago. Enough people said, okay, we've been spending a lot of time on what we're not supposed to do. What are we gonna do? And that was the Christ message, the Beatitudes. No more thou shalt nots, they became thou shalt. What are we gonna do? And again, that happened because enough people shifted their consciousness, consciously or made a choice, and it just clicked. And God said, let's make the connection. Okay, let's personify the connection. I'll send you my son. And you're going to beat the crap out of him, probably. Poor guy. He's like, I don't want this. I know how this ends. And, and so we try to teach people, careful about the martyr business model, the model. Because, Joanne Isby used to say at Mercy College of Detroit, I could go to El Salvador and go try to make a difference next week, and I'll be dead in 2 weeks. She goes, but you know what? I like the dew on the morning grass. And that changed my life forever when she said that. I was like, so, it's important to change the world, but don't get killed. You can get killed next week doing it. So it's very, I don't know how I got down that, but it's very that Christ consciousness. And so we've got to make sure, we don't shift to a martyr mindset. Just go throw yourself in front of the bayonets. That's not going to help anybody. So there's an art to it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how I got down that line. But the new consciousness, enough of us, and this isn't something that happened in 2012 or happened last week. No, I think it did happen 2,000 years ago. The kingdom of God is at hand. And we don't make any, we're not going to make any excuses for that. I'm not hiding that. And because because I want to be in alignment with who we're working with. We work with a tier 1 manufacturing auto company in Detroit Manufacturing Systems. It's because I met the CEO at a garage sale and we started talking and he went, "Are you kidding me? We got to get you together with the rest of the, executive leadership because this is our vision." And so, you touch the people who are in that frequency. And more people are. There's so many people, "I'm afraid, I don't know if I can mention this or say that." And it's like, say it. The right people are going to show up. They're waiting for someone to stand up and say it because they won't. But it resonates with, they're like, "Oh my God." Yeah, so when I go to a networking event or anywhere, people walk up to me, why? They're like, "I had to talk to you when you said new consciousness. Mm-hmm. I've been looking for this. Oh my gosh, I've been on this journey. I've been waiting for, so I don't have to sell to someone who doesn't belong, and the same thing with our high school and stuff. We served I co-founded 2 high schools, but they were for at-risk kids, they call them now. And we were the first program in the state, one of the first in the country. Now they call it alternative ed. Every district in the country has one. They're horrible, right? They're just terrible. Yeah. And but we were actually doing the things we were talking about. But where was I going with that?
What happened? What was the results of that? Is you're working in this alternative ed
community? So about letting kids, the right kids in the door. And we didn't really have to worry about it. We didn't just let I always said, rain-soaked puppy that showed up at the door. We didn't open, "Oh, you poor thing." No, they had to be ready to turn it around because we weren't here to make any excuses for them. Yeah. It's like, you screwed this up. But we're here to help you put it back together. And a lot of people sabotage your success too. You were a kid, right? And a lot of the adults around you were sabotaging your success. Okay. But our mantra was always, what are you going to do today to make yourself more financially free and more emotionally free or independent? That was like the mantra. What did you do today to make yourself more independently, emotionally, and financially? Because those people, you can't keep going to that well that's been peed in and think you're going to get a fresh glass of water. It's not there anymore. So you got to do something. But the point of that is, sales, getting back to sales, you can't, it's so easy. And I failed as an entrepreneur a few times in the last 10 years because I was just so desperate to sign up anyone. And most of the people that I looked around, they didn't belong there. And I'd have to chase them. Their attendance was terrible. They dropped out. Yeah. But I worked with at-risk kids for decades, and I had a better attendance rate.
People that didn't want to be there.
Yeah, we had a higher attendance rate than the regular school in the school district. And all the principals would talk to me, "How are you doing this?" I'm like, "Well, I don't tell them what to do. That's one thing." They're like, "What?" And it's a paradox. It's like, And they were like, "How are you getting 90 to 100% attendance rate of the kids that dropped out of our schools?"
Yes.
What? So, and that's because we built, we just attracted the right people. Now, we did try this one time. It happened to us. It was one semester where we went for numbers. Let's get some numbers. That's the human. Let's expand this thing. Let's make it grow. Let's scale it up. And about halfway through that semester, maybe first few weeks, we always had meetings with the fact that I looked around the room and said, "Anyone having fun yet?" We used to only serve about 45 kids at a time. And it was suddenly 95 or 100. And I looked around, "Anyone having fun?" They were like, "Nope." So we got to never do this again.
Yeah.
We only let
people
just
too many at one time.
Yeah, but I always find if you really create something that's authentic, the only people that show up are the ones that are. And if someone slips through, they leave. Yeah. And we work with companies, same thing. It's like we don't have to ask anyone to leave when you create a culture of empowerment. They just go because they're vampires. Yeah. And there's nothing for them to feed on anymore. They're energy suckers. And so when everybody's empowered and realizes they don't need to give their power away or their energy away or they don't need to take anybody else's, those people that can't feed there just don't come back to, they find another place to eat. And so that's the way it works.
What's that like incorporating in a business? It sounds like it's pretty big business. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see that culture firsthand, to see what that company looks like. Because you think about most companies I've worked for, there's an argument going on between departments. There's that internal war of companies that splits people apart. Most people don't want to be there. If they stop paying them tomorrow, they wouldn't be there. They're not doing it because they love being there. They're doing it because they need the money, right?
Yeah, and that's when you got to create that culture of intrinsic purpose. You know, I'm answering my own individual intrinsic purpose, and I'm unified and in agreement with the intrinsic purpose of the community that I'm in too. That's the power. That everything goes away. Like 90% of your problems don't even show up because there's no ground for those seeds to even grow in. So it's like, what do you do when it's like the when doesn't happen?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
and when it does, it's so strong, and you get together and you strategize for strategy. You come up with strategies for positive change when that thing shows up. That's an individual struggling, or a team is struggling. Well, let's get together and empower them to solve the problem. Own it. Now that's huge. It get really tight. A lot of tears. A lot of baggage has to be put out on the table. We always call it we have a 4-part. An operation when we teach them to have effective meetings. And the first part is always I call it the speak to. Everybody just say it, man. Just say it. It's safe here. You say whatever you got to say. Let's get it out. And most importantly, going back to the classrooms, the reason you do that is there's some information that not everyone knows. Mm-hmm. We're meeting today to help Johnny, get his homework done. He's not getting anything done. So let's get together and, and Johnny knew, he'd be talked about today, and his family, we told everybody. And he's part of the strategy too. But someone will step up, and maybe it's him, and say, this is the situation at home right now. It's like, oh. So that speak to is really important because you got to get some back. There's a lot of things people are assuming or don't know, and they're reacting out of ignorance.
Yeah.
And so the speak to is really important. And then we move into possible solutions.
It's so huge. I think about it from a leadership standpoint. I'd always have my managers would come to me and talk about an employee as, always late, or they don't get their work done, or they don't do what they're asked to do, and these kind of things. And it's like, I don't know why they're doing this. And it'll always be like, I see so much potential in them. They could do this and this and this, and I just don't know what's going on. It's like, have you asked them what's going on? Have you ever told them how much potential you see in them and what they're great at? Have you ever had this conversation? And every single time it's no.
Always.
You have to have that kind of conversation. You don't know what's going on in somebody's head. And the problem is you start thinking of all the reasons. And most of the time, those are never the reasons.
Oh, almost never. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? We always think we're so right, And it was always, the other thing is you only deal with patterns in meetings. We call them issues at the meeting. But you don't deal with isolated incident. But if there is a pattern, like so-and-so, like you said, is da-da-da-da-da-da, that's a pattern. Mm-hmm. So why don't we sit down and help them break that pattern? They're stuck in a loop. Maybe they just need some information.
Yes.
Or some strategies that could help them get out. Maybe they just need to talk to someone. And that's where rip and pip comes in too, like reprimand in private, praise in public. Mm-hmm. So pull them aside quietly. Hey, is this something you and I can deal with one-on-one? Let's just have a talk. Or do you want the group to get together collectively and we can all kind of strategize to build kind of help you out?
And then you put them in charge of what the next step is.
Yeah, and they probably have a lot of preconceived notions about how people see them too. But you see, it's a chicken and egg story. It's really perpetuating, itself, and it gets ugly. But when that culture goes away, there's no longer any assuming going on. Because now your group, the effective leader allows the group space to meet. And number one, if you're going to empower them, the next thing you got to do is enable them space and time to meet.
Yeah.
And so many organizations are in the weeds. They go, we got to get this done. We got to get that done. They don't think they have time to stop and reflect on what's happening. And the fact that they don't stop and reflect on what's happening is why they're in the mess they're in the first place. So, we try to teach culture to get out of the flash fire culture. We're always putting out the flash fires. It's like, can you just stop and take a breath and do some fire prevention? Because if you can sit down and front load your fire prevention, you're never going to have any flash fires anymore. And the ones you do have, you can handle them very easily because you have a proactive system.
You're proactively taking care of it. You're proactively.
And so Robert Kimball taught us as teachers, don't crack a book open in the classroom for the first 4 to 7 weeks. Build your culture, build your community, create a system that everyone buys into. And now whoosh, you know. But in so many schools and organizations, getting back to this, how many, making money, or for a school attendance, how many students do we have? Are we going to get the funding? So many organizations don't have the courage to build the culture that releases the people who don't belong there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to survive that attrition and know that attrition is going to happen, but that's a good sign. You're releasing toxicity that no longer serves the community's agreements. So let them go. And here's what happens. Now they're lined up down the street and around the corner to get in.
Yes.
But you've got to wait for that, because word on the street, unconsciously especially, is incredibly powerful energetically. This is the new consciousness. So for us, we pulled kids from 7 different districts when we had our at-risk high schools, because the word on the street is extremely powerful. But the only kids that showed up were the ones that were ready to do what we were doing at our school, not the ones that didn't, because they either knew consciously or unconsciously, here's how it happens there. And if I'm a jerk, I can't go there and feed off of people.
Yeah.
But the best thing is when the jerk, just speaking loosely here, says, I'm a jerk, but I know if I stay, I don't have to be a jerk anymore. I can change. So I want to stay and become not a jerk. That person becomes the strongest person on the team.
Mm.
That's the one. You don't want to just kick. That's why you don't ask people to leave.
Yeah.
Because someone at some point will be like, oh my gosh, I can grow here. It's safe. I got all these things about myself. My self-worth is in the dumps. I hate about myself. But with what you're creating here, I can change.
Why do you think they become then the strongest of the group?
Well, it's like the Bible teaches. The convert is the strongest person in the congregation, right? Because they've walked the walk.
Yeah.
And now they have that empathy, raise other people up. They have compassion. They know, because they've been there. And so that's a lot. That you want that perspective on your team. You want that player.
How much of it is, do you think, that these people didn't want to be a jerk, to your point? That's just whatever elements, and you talked about your childhood briefly, and I've had a similar childhood to that, and you operate on what your experiences are, what your perspective, right? So you may not even realize that you're a jerk, but then somebody gives you something. They're giving you this opportunity to change. So you're investing in them, and you're giving them a structure that they've never had before, and they get to believe in themselves.
Yeah, I think self-worth has a lot to do with it. I think most people that we might label as jerks, they know exactly what, most people are self-aware, but they hide that because common consciousness is really strong. That's a strong force. Most people are trapped in the common mindset, the group mindset. And they all think, think of the crisis that we've gone through the last 2 years. Everybody just thinks, oh, well, that's what they think.
Yeah.
I better just fit in and shut up and just put my head down. And I called the lockdowns the exact same thing that happens with snow days, with districts. Oh, that district next door to us closed. Call the news. We're going to close too.
Yep. And
it just becomes this snowball you can't stop. And because somebody gave an erroneous weather report, and the next day all the kids are out at the mall shopping. There's like 2 inches of wet snow on the ground, and there's pavement showing. But everybody just went with, oh, well, they're closing. Well, we better close too.
Yeah.
And I literally saw that energy forming.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the whole society just wanted a snow day. I think everybody just wanted. Everyone wants a snow day. What feels better than that? I mean, I'm a teacher.
Nice.
I would go dance out
day
in my pajamas, on snow days on the driveway, like, woo! when I saw that scroll go by. There's no feeling like it. But it's fun. But a lot of people are, like Henry David Thoreau, live a life of quiet desperation. And they don't show it to anyone. And the snow day comes along. It's like, you know what? Maybe I can just check out. And we checked out. So there was a shift on the planet that said, like I say when you walk in my classroom the first day, Mommy doesn't live here anymore. You know what? The divine said, to the planet. It's been saying it for 2,000 years, but it finally just said, this is it. We're out of here. No one's telling you what to do anymore, and divine intervention is not going to solve all your problems anymore. We're sick and tired of it. Grow up and be an adult. And what's the first thing humanity did when the first bump happened in the night? It shut down. The entire planet shut down. And the divine went, oh, really? Is that where you are in the spectrum? But watch what happened to the third world and developing countries. Most of them gave the collective finger to the establishment, said, nope, we're not. But they've suffered the most. We can get into that, and they continue to. But I think it was a moment for them to lead. They actually led the way. I mean, you had prime ministers of countries testing cantaloupes and goats and sending in the results, and it was like that. Yes, that's my favorite kid in the classroom right there. Bring him in. And so I watched so new consciousness. This is how we see things. We don't get into the details. But what happened was they were told to grow up and you're in charge. We're not telling you what to do anymore. And, suddenly mom and dad went away for the weekend. You were all excited. And the furnace started making this scary sound in the basement. And everybody hid in their closets. But, you missed out the whole weekend. You could have had this great time, And so that's what we're going through collectively as a planet right now. And America is such an interesting experiment because, and everyone's always looked to us like, well, what are you guys going to do? You guys don't do this stuff. You don't fall for this crap. And we kind of led the way for a minute, and it was kind of disappointing. But then it allowed the developing and underdeveloped communities in the world to step up and say, we've seen this game before. This ain't new to us. We've had people hoaxing us into fear and manipulating us for centuries. And so they saw the game. They saw it pretty quickly and pretty easily, And when you look at the data, graphically, you'll see, these countries like that didn't play along have this flat line in cases. It just runs along the bottom of a graph. And the ones that played along. So that teaches us so much that we will play, common consciousness will play, and it'll go backwards on the story. It'll self-fulfill a prophecy. It will not, if the story isn't there, it'll make one up. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, I don't have to get into the details and the candidates and the people involved. That's what's happening consciously. And we need to identify that. And it's a mirror. That's what's happening in society right now. We can yell and scream and what are they doing to us? No, you don't have that. You're responsible. You're an adult.
If you're talking about this topic, the thing that rings out is what you said earlier as far as teenagers. The biggest driving force in teenagers is don't tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. And you saw a lot of people like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I didn't see enough of them.
Yeah.
In fact, and I didn't see the teenagers do it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It really frustrated me. It literally was a dagger to my heart to see that, because it's like, really, guys? Because you're the ones that need to. And then, but there were communities of kids that did, but they weren't covered, right? And yeah, because I think, and artists too, and religious leaders. This is where the rebellion starts. It's important to have a rebellious element in your community. You got to welcome that because it shows us all, through the arts, in a fun way. Sometimes it could be dark, like, oh, that's pretty dark art you got going over there. But I get it. You're the dark guy. You're the fringe artist. But it's important, in comedians, it's important to laugh at ourselves. Many a truth is said in jest, Shakespeare. And the artist walks that line with what's allowed. And it's important. And those are my favorite kids in the classroom. Those are my favorite people when I'm training a group professionally. There's got to be someone that sticks their neck out. And you know what? Everybody follows that person.
Yeah.
Because you're saying what everyone else felt, but you had the courage to do it.
Do it and say it, yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, yeah, they're all laughing.
Yeah.
Everyone's laughing, like, ooh. So it's just so important. So it was kind of disheartening But that changed. It really did change. A lot of artists have stood up now, and a lot of people are. And I think it's going to be, you're going to see more of that. Because when I grew up in the 60s, man. I grew up in 1964, and the music and the art, everything was like sticking it to the man. You question authority. Even the Benedictine monks, that I studied under for 12 years, that's why I saw the light at 17, because they just kept planting. Those seeds were going to grow at some point.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what life threw on top of that soil, at some point the light was going to get through, and that was going to grow, and it did. And so I went to a high school that literally told us to question authority every day and in every classroom. Like, that was the mantra. Question authority, critical thinking, always challenge everything and think for yourself and figure out the truth. And it was like, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's huge. And so when I see people being told what to do and then just doing what they're told, it just blows a kid's mind from the 60s.
One of my favorite, there's like a meme of Rage Against the Machine, the lead singer from Rage Against the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Who, he has a song. It's like, F you, don't do, I won't do what they tells you. It was like, you got to do what they're telling you to do. It was like, F you, I'm going to do what they tell you. It's just that one, like, he was so Rage Against the Machine, and now he's telling everybody just follow and do what they tell you to do.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to make a video about that because then you have to ask the question, was that artist was that his marketing and his brand? Or was he really that person and he changed?
Yeah. Which happens.
Oh, sure.
But
it usually switches the other way, though. Wow. But, people are like, oh, you worked with those children. That's so amazing. That's incredible. God bless you. I'm like, the kids are easy. You guys all told me to take this out of the classroom and show it to the world. I'm like, what the heck? These adults are a mess.
Well, no, that's interesting. It's like, what's the difference between teaching the kids and then going in and working with the adults? It seems like mainly because the kids, you can come into that classroom and you can make that statement. Your mom doesn't live here anymore.
They're hungry.
They want it. They're open. They're receptive.
It's what they want.
You have adults that are like, oh my God, I've been being told what to do my whole entire life. Oh my God, I've been making these excuses. Or to your point, I've been able to blame the man or put the responsibility on somebody else all this time.
Yeah, that's a big one. And so that is the difference with working with adults. Like, man, don't rock my boat. I got this figured out. I'm playing the game. I figured out the game. And
I'm close to retirement. Don't leave.
I would see that happen with juniors and seniors too. It's like, dude, I'm almost out of here. I'm just doing the bare minimum. I'm just going. Mm-hmm. I'm just coasting. And what a shame that that's what they got out of that 12 years, to learn how to coast.
Yes.
Really? That's your life? Like a life without passion, purpose?
Just memorize a bunch of stuff from a book. We're going to test you on Friday on it.
Well, yeah. And, when I saw that, not so much in my own schools or the ones I partnered with that were extraordinary, but can I clear my throat? Can I just step away from that? I get a lot of pollen out there right now. Come on. I'm outside. I play outside. So, so you see that, and then it's no wonder that you see adults running the world like this. It's like, centralized ideas and do what you're told.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, what is that? That's just not healthy. But, when I would work in inner city schools too, what happens there is you have a kid that's been emotionally damaged. And so you walk in with a different view of the universe. Mm-hmm. And it's like someone telling me, no, the universe works like this, Palmer. The opposite of what I think.
Yeah.
They don't want to give that up. That really,
it's hard.
Like, what are you doing? This is how I see the universe. It's the way it's always been. And you come walking in after 12 years of me being on the planet and tell me, so they'll rebel. They want to drag you back into the story. No, you're a terrible, because every adult I've ever known is manipulative, dishonest, a fake, doesn't care about my best interests. And so it takes a minute for them to the trust takes a minute. It really does. But you got to find your allies in the room. Same thing with a workforce.
Yeah.
You get into a workspace that's so dysfunctional and toxic.
You find your allies.
Yeah, and that's why, the other thing is we got to sit down with the leadership, and I give them a very thorough presentation. And I got to know that, okay, because you got to change.
Yes.
Because it's not their fault.
Yes.
This is just the way it is.
Yes.
It's yours.
And that's the huge piece. And to your point of working only with the people that are ready,
Yep.
is because if they're they're not ready to look in the mirror, you're not going to make any change.
No, and I'm not going to go to a job every day that stinks. I'm not going to work, and that's just horrible. I'm not going to do it. I'm not helping them. So maybe I'm just planting the seed by presenting this idea to them. That's okay. That was my purpose. I came along. And but I'm not going to sell this to you.
Yeah.
You're selling to me. And that's the way I was. When I go to interviews as a teacher, that was the same thing. I would sit there and start interviewing. They'd figure it out after a while. Like, wait a minute, you're interviewing me? It's like, yeah. What do you mean? I'm not going to, come on. Because I moved up north. I was moving here and there. It's like, no way, man. But, yeah, it's important. But if you do get into a toxic environment that wants to change, or the leadership's like, hey, we got to do something, then you got to find your allies. And then with working with the manufacturing company I mentioned, they came straight out like their purpose is to work with marginalized communities. So a lot of their employees have not been given the social skills, employability skills, but they're working with them. Like they're hanging in there with them. Some of them, give you an anecdote, will sleep in their cars in the parking lot because they can't go home to a domestically violent home. Mm-hmm. So, this is where they're, and they want to serve this community. They really want to bring these people up. And then they don't want to stop there. They want to create a mindset and a culture where now that you've been given this, now you need to give back to your community the way it was given to you. And so it's like, man, it's pretty cool to be a part of something like that.
You mentioned briefly at the very beginning about your childhood, and I think this is a good lead into that. What is your childhood? How does that play into what you're doing now in this whole entire concept?
It's everything. We name, I would say we, because when I say we, it's only me.
Yeah.
But I include every kid I ever worked with in that we. So that's why I'm not as schizophrenic as this. There's
not all these voices in your head.
Well, there are. But I call it the Raven Institute in honor of the Benedictine monks. And you know that story that, we were so fortunate to have a monastery in Detroit. There were like 2 in North America. And to have those principles taught to me about how to see God in the world and Christ in the world. And, I think the biggest one for me, this has been hitting me, Christ will come again. I'm like, the monks would say, never left. Mm. Christ will come again means when you open the refrigerator, Christ is there. When you go to the store and the person standing next to you in line is Christ.
It's not there. A date in 10 years.
There's no, and I always think of the, and I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I'm everything, so but I say that because I just don't want to mislead people. But one of my favorite things in Scripture is when, I don't even remember who was all there, but it's in the Acts of the Apostles. It's after Christ has ascended, or maybe he hasn't yet, but they're all standing on top of some mount looking up, waiting for, and somebody shows up, and I think it's Christ and Elijah, and they're like, what are you looking for? There's nothing to wait for. It's kingdom of God is at hand. And the monks always push that to us, that person that needs you on the streets that you're walking past, that's Christ come again. It's always there. There's no time-space continuum. Mm. And so that's a big one. And the other one that stood out to me was don't attach human characteristics to the omnipotent, to God. God's mad at you. God's going to judge you. No, those are human characteristics. And the monks constantly reminded us to be on watch for that, because we do that. Yeah. We just continuously project our attributes, even onto each other. We talked about that, how, why is that salesperson like that? They have so much potential. Blah, blah. You're attaching, and you think you know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. No idea. And then to do that to God is just bizarre. But in the new consciousness, we see, and I think this seed was planted in the Christ consciousness, and we just feel like we're expanding it, that God is everything. Yeah. Everything is one of the quotes we use from one of our mentors. And then the other one is all that is. God is just all that is. Period. Nothing. No, that's it. And so that differentiation creates a lot of peace and liberty and prosperity, right? Because I'm sitting with God right now. You know, it's everything is a manifestation of the divine. So that being said, you know, our programs are really powerful. So probably getting into that, you know, how did that idea was always with me. I came to this planet to experience and enjoy myself and not to work at this. And that is our fundamental belief at the Raven Institute. And mine has always been that, whether I could articulate it when I was 5 years old and getting in trouble all the time. But I was here to have fun and to enjoy myself and not be told. I didn't want somebody to ruin it for me. You know, to me, going to rake the leaves in the rain in the fall was the greatest experience I could possibly have. I couldn't wait. But when someone spoiled it when they would yell at me about having to go do it, get out there. It's like, why did you have to ruin that for me?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go and experience that for the wonder of what it is.
And now it's a chore. Now it's a job. Now I have to do it.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this, and you teach this in your sales. You don't articulate it this way, I guess, but the new consciousness coach teaches people that anxiety and creativity cannot exist in the same room or cannot exist in the same space.
Yes.
So when you know creativity, when anxiety comes in, creativity exits. It's like, I can't be here, I can't create in that space and that force and that energy. Your mind, you know, your frequency's off. I can't connect with it. And so then we see how that feels. Oh man, it's not fun anymore. It's not easy. There's no flow to it. There's no synchronicity or magic happening. There's no wonder.
Yep.
And I don't want to do it again either because that wasn't fun. And so we teach people, you know, when they engage in our practices, they realize, oh, this is how it feels when I'm co-creating with the divine. If you want to call it creativity, new consciousness. But this is how it feels. And this is how it feels when I'm detached from it. I'm crawling through drying cement and I can't get anything done. And we do it to each other constantly. We sabotage each other's success by bringing anxiety into the room, by the things we say. You know, I talk to parents. He doesn't want to do anything. You know, I tell him what to do. Well, because you spoiled it for him. He doesn't want to do it now because creativity just left the room. He's feeling it. He doesn't know what it is. You don't know you just did it. So now we got to train you to quit doing that and start being a team of people who perpetuates passion and purpose and gets excited about what we're all doing instead of sabotaging what we're all doing by letting that anxiety in and then, you know, woo, I'll go, you know, and of course he doesn't want to do it because you just spoiled it for him. So he's not a status quo kid. You know, he's actually came here with a criteria that I'm only going to do this at this level or I'm not going to do it, which for me as an entrepreneur can be a real saboteur because I won't do anything. I just won't do it. So I have to make sure I shift my energy. That's why our energy school teaches people how to shift their energy and bring that creativity back in through the art of bringing up, with the use of your creativity and imagination to bring that excitement back into it somehow. And, you know, take the work and take the anxiety out of it and get back to, oh, this is easy. This is fun. Can't wait to do this. This is in alignment with my highest purpose, too. So.
I can see why for years people were telling you, Robert, you need to get this out. You need to get this out. You need to keep it back in the world.
I feel like you and I are just scratching the surface today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. But
No, I agree. It's just, I mean, it's an hour. Right?
I came in with no agenda until I was like, well, wait a minute. Let me say what a new consciousness coach is here before the minute's up. So I kind of threw that in there. So if it feels like it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrived. It was. So there it is. We had our contrived moment, I've confessed. And now I'm back again. Just keep it real, man. I'm owning it. So,
man, like, whether it's schools, because we could sit and talk, we could do an hour episode just on the school system itself.
I would, you know, with our 5 schools, the 5 areas, I would like to come back, hey, let's just focus on this one. Hey, let's just focus on that. I would like to do that. But I know as a podcaster, you like want to wait. Like, okay, maybe next quarter. I'll see you in the winter. Because you want to keep your But at the same time, I'm always looking to be that guy who, hey, let's hear from the new consciousness coach this month. We haven't talked to him in a while. So yeah,
you'll definitely be invited back.
Let's get his perspective on this nonsense. Yeah. So.
But again, this is, just think, and everybody listening, and as you've listened to this whole conversation, think if we lived in a world, if you worked at a place that operated like this.
Oh.
If you went to a school, you sent your kids to a school that operated like this. Man,
Well, I'll tell you what happens. So we had a 14-year-old last year that we worked with, right? They dropped out of this institutional learning. She and mom show up, right? I'm like, whoa. And we're like, okay, well, let's create this beyond tutoring program. Yeah. And so we did our studio approach with this kid. We had her, we got her to the point where she was designing her own curriculum and doing all this crazy stuff based on her strengths, interests, and possible career path. Boom, this thing took off. And of course, the parents have to audit and master the same tools the kids learning. So there are 20 advanced learning tools, we call them. But the parents learn them along the way. So now there's transparency. I hate that word, but you can check in with your kid now. You can talk the same language. Like, hey, how's that project going? What'd you do today? Well, I did this. You talk about the practice you did. It's like, wow, what was that like? Tell me about it. And so they know that they're having an authentic engagement and they know what they're learning. And it's like really cool. It's not like, did you do that? It's like, no, talk to me. What'd you do today? It's like, oh, I did this. It's so cool. Oh my God. But, so anyway, so we worked with her for a year, and mom keeps checking in with me. Well, the latest checkup last week was daughter entered high school in her freshman year, ended up in 4 AP classes, was not in an AP class when she started. They were just like, oh my God, what do you do with this kid? So they kept throwing her in AP classes. She hung out with seniors all year. Seniors graduated. She's all bummed out. She's going to museums all the time with her friends. She's in a rock band. What? She's teaching herself piano. She, teaching herself French. And all this happened because mom and daughter had to go through our leadership development program. Mom had to empower the daughter and listen. And Niagara Falls, lots of crying.
Oh,
we went through a lot of sessions. We had meetings where we had to solve problems together, and they were just like, ah. But one of the things that came up was, Mom, I want to move to Tennessee and live with my older sister, who's married, and I think she has a kid. Mom said, well, if that's what you want to do, then I'm going to support it. And I'll just, and I had to teach, we always have to teach parents to let them fail. Let them do what they got to do and then just be there and let it be a learning experience. Man, they learn so much more than if you try to squash them and tell them what to do, and they're just not going to do it now.
Yeah.
Compared to, well, let me let them go to the moon and learn what happened when they went to the moon. What do you think they're going to get more out of? So anyways, a year later, it's in Tennessee, band, teaching piano. 4 AP classes in freshman year. I've never heard of that. I didn't even know you could do that. Now the school doesn't know what to do with her, so they're going to dual enroll her.
This freshman year.
Yeah. They're going to dual enroll her next year at Vanderbilt. The school doesn't know what to do with her. And she wants to study. She wants to go to Europe and study, so she's going to get into the study abroad program with Vanderbilt. 14.
Wow.
That's what happens. And I get chills from this.
Yeah.
When you do this, whatever this is, when you just allow them to be themselves. And I have best friends whose kids all graduated by the time their peers were graduating from high school. I mean, they were in college at 14 because they're unschooled or they're no schooled or they're homeschooled. There's 3 levels of homeschooling. But there's no reason to be trapped in this place for 12 years, sitting in this room. It's like, what are you doing?
Why just going through the motions? That's 12 years of your life.
Yeah, what we did is we had the kids design what we called their area of study or their field of study. So everything they did was built around this. Like, for instance, like a kid hates math, but he loves history. Like he's a history savant. So it's like, well, that's how you're going to learn math. Whatever time period you're studying or region you're studying in, you're going to learn how they did math. So now he's a historian learning about math, how they did math. So now that's how he learns. Now he's excited about it. So that's a simple example, but that's like, again, you redirect the energy to a positive place. It's like kung fu. You don't meet a force head on, you redirect it. And so that works. It's like, that's how the universe works. That's what, the water doesn't just keep hitting that rock and not go anywhere. It goes around the rock and heads off to the Atlantic Ocean at some point.
My listeners have heard me tell this story all the time. I hated school as a kid, especially elementary school, junior, middle school. By the time I got into high school, I was fine. But I love sports. I love sports. I collected baseball cards. I could literally do the math in my head as far as if somebody's up to bat and they get a hit,
yeah.
I could do averages in my head.
Love that about baseball.
But I hated math.
Yeah.
And I failed math in school.
I hate stats. Like, I could never take a
teachers-
stats class. But I did stats in sports constantly.
Right. But none of my teachers were like, my teachers would tell me, you're wasting your time, put that stuff away. They'd constantly yell at me about doing that stuff. So I'm sneaking it, right? To your point, they're telling me not to do it, so I'm doing it, first off. Second off, what if one of them would have come to me and said, you know what you're doing is math, right? When you're looking at those averages, when you're calculating those numbers.
Careful how you tell you that. But yeah.
But then when I spent my whole life thinking I suck at math, I hate math. There's just a story I told myself. And then I got into business and I'm like, math, numbers, like all these averages and stats and forecasting. And it was like, that was my strong suit.
What's my average today?
Yeah, I could do that really quickly. Somebody's
Yeah.
like, what's my average per average revenue per sale? It's like, oh, boom, it's this, like, because that was the math that I enjoyed doing and it helped me out in business. But wow, what if a teacher would have told me that at some point and helped me continue developing that at 12, 13, 14?
Well, you would have dropped out of high school and created your own business probably.
Absolutely. Man, that's scary.
I know, right? But that's,
It's scary in the sense of like, what are we afraid of?
I know what's going to happen. It's like, what? No, go fail as fast as you can. Robert Kiyosaki says, fail as fast as you can.
Man, Robert, thanks for leaving your house, putting on your Easter Sunday.
Putting on pants. And
putting on pants.
digging out my Easter outfit. Yeah, I didn't know, gosh. The chamber does this to me too. It's like, wow, I'm going to see people. It's important.
It's an important day. It's Monday too.
I got to fix it. Yeah. We didn't even talk about that because I'm trying. See, don't try.
Yeah. Don't
It means
try.
you're not doing
Don't
it.
try.
But I'm creating the 4-day work week, 3 days off, 4 days on. Because I want to create a lifestyle where I work 2 months, I have a month off. So I thought, well, why have that? Oh, I'm going to do that someday. Because then energy is unconditional. It'll just serve, oh, you want to do it someday?
Yep.
Then that's the way it'll stay.
Yep.
And because that's what you
someday you're dead.
said. And so I thought, well, let's create it every week. Just let it happen now. And now I do it in my work day, too. I work 2 hours, take an hour off. I work 2 hours, take an hour. Because I want it to actually, I want to experience it. I want it to be, there's no time and space continuum. There's just, if you want to do it, just do it.
Yep.
And lo and behold, just let it happen. There you go.
That's a perfect way to end. If you want to do it, just do it. Take the action. Don't try. That's my
don't
pet peeve
plan
word.
on it and don't work
try.
towards it and don't, if I someday, because that unconditionally, energy is unconditional love. So and God is unconditional love. It would, and at some point, I say it figures you'll figure it out at some point. If I just keep, I'll just wait until you see it for yourself. Because if I tell you it doesn't work, say that's how God treats us. So I thought, well, God treats me like that. Let me just do that. I'm just going to treat everybody else like that too, because that probably works. And that's what it is. Unconditional love. Don't tell anybody what to do. Nurture them and let them figure it out for themselves and just support it.
Huge.
Boom.
Boom. Mic drop.
That's it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, everyone.